Hello and welcome along to the Westminster Roundup with the Sport and Recreation Alliance. I'm your host, Alex Sexton, and once again, very pleased to be joined by the Alliance's Public Affairs Manager, Ryan McCulloch. How are you, Ryan?
I'm very well, Alex. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Getting used to lockdown 3 as it is now and all the fun that comes with that. Still trying to get out and have some exercise in the windy and wet weather at the moment, but keeping well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. I've been lucky enough to get an exercise bike recently because I just can't. I couldn't keep bringing myself to go outside. I do like a run, but I can't bring myself to go outside in the cold and wet. So,
no, tough time, especially when it's still dark for 12, 14 hours a day. It's a tough one. But thankfully, not only ourselves continuing to work, but parliamentarians are still virtually tuning in and making sure the right questions are asked. And what we have seen, despite these new set of restrictions, are questions and movements on physical activity being raised in Parliament. So what's the latest news from within the halls of Westminster, Ryan?
Yeah, so there's been not so much in the main chambers, a little bit in the House of Lords, which I'll come on to, but the House of the DCMS Select Committee in the House of Commons has been meeting to talk about facilities and activity. And our kind of sector friends at UK Active appeared, Hugh Edwards, just to talk about what the sector needs, what the immediate danger is from being shut down for this prolonged third period, as you mentioned earlier. And it's part of the wider part of the sport in our communities evidence that they're taking, which our members may remember asked for written evidence before Christmas, and it's been open for some months now. And I think it's probably going to be looking to take evidence across the spring, at least until Easter, trying to get a real holistic picture of where the sector is at, where it's going to be and what it needs. So it's crucial that we get into those meetings if we can, and that we represent members very accurately. We want to create a really kind of good picture of that, and it's great that the committee are listening to that. And I know subsequently, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet because I've just seen it on Twitter before I came on here, but one of the committee members, Damien Hines, met with sports clubs in his East Hampshire constituency to feed into that as well. So there's sort of sub meetings going on. So I'll find out a little bit more about that and see if members can contribute in that way, because that would be really helpful. One of the other in the House of Lords, we have the ongoing National Plan for Sport and Recreation Committee, which we talked about on here a few times. Obviously, we appeared before Christmas. They had journalists last week, and they are taking evidence still in written form until next Friday, the 29th. And it's been really great in the last week or so because I've been able to interact with a few groups of members about what the committee is looking at, what it's looking to do, and to help with some not what to put in your evidence. I don't want to tell you what to put in your evidence, but how to shape it so that it's impactful for the committee, because they are meeting every week. And this week they met on mental health, for example, in sport, and they'll be focusing on different things every week. So there should be a chance, and your written evidence is a really good chance to showcase what you know and about your sport or your particular part of the sector, with the hope that you might get called before the committee. So if there are any members still yet to write, or they want to write, it doesn't have to be a really long submission. We've drafted one on behalf of the sector that's obviously reasonably lengthy. Please get in touch with me, because I'll be happy to sit down with you and talk you through what the sorts of things the committee's asking and give you a hand with that. So please get in touch.
Fantastic. And it's an interesting point you make there, Ryan, that even more so, we know how important evidencing the impact that physical activity has and our community clubs and our organisations. But even more so than ever in the current climate, it's so important that we do this. And those two committees are ways for us to be able to tell that story. And just a bit of a heads up for our members, we're working on some research in the background at the moment, and we'll shortly be releasing it to you to try and find out what the current state of play is for our grassroots community clubs and organisations. And we really do encourage you to share that with your clubs and your community groups, because without that evidence base and without knowing what's actually taking place out on the ground at the moment, we can't evidence that to Parliament. So the more research, the more statistics, and the more evidence that we receive as well, we can form a stronger argument. And when we provide evidence at these sessions, it gives us a much stronger foothold when talking to government. So that's my plea over, anyway, for when that survey link lands, and to get you all to share that one. We know it's not just committees working for us, though. A few written questions have popped up in Parliament over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so a couple of things to pick up here, really. One in the House of Commons and one in the House of Lords. I'll start with the House of Lords. There was a topical question raised by Baroness Morgan, obviously former Secretary of State at DCMS, on facilities and activity, and the House of Lords debated that with the Minister. These are short debates, it's 10 or 15 minutes. Wasn't much movement along with the general theme of written questions in the House of Commons. So essentially there's a lot of stuff being asked on the government's reasoning for doing what it's doing, what it anticipates the effects will be, why it's made the decisions it's made, and the responses are very similar from government. We're in the national lockdown. It's going on until at least mid-February. The vaccine's being rolled out. They have continued to say that sport and physical activity will be one of the first sectors they look to open, which is great, and we're obviously hanging on to that and making sure that we can hold them to their word on that. But for now, there isn't much of a shift in what's being said in terms of the fact that that's where we're at, and I think everybody knows that. So sort of coming back to the point you just made, and you convinced me in your plea, it really does help me and our team, the policy team, in making the case to parliamentarians if we can evidence really in great detail and with empirical statistics and numbers where the problems are and what the sector needs. Because I can say that these problems are there and we know that they're there, but parliamentarians need to see that in the figures. So please do respond to that survey, get your clubs to respond to that survey when it comes out if you can, because that would be really helpful for us.
And that will really help those conversations in regards to unwrapping physical activity when we are safe and able to do so, as well, as Ryan mentions. But it's not just lockdown we've been concentrating on. We're now moving towards our second month of withdrawal from the EU, and we know that questions have been coming in from our members around Brexit and the implications of that. What's the latest, Ryan?
Yeah, so we've asked a number of questions to the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport and others about the effects of withdrawal from the European Union. So you may have seen the wider stories on the news. There's some issues at the borders, etc. I expect that that will settle down as people get used to the new regime. But also, as I discussed last time, with the current coronavirus restrictions on travel and on events, everything else that comes with being locked down, we're unlikely to see the full effects on our sector until we're able to move about again, until people are able to go and teach and train in other countries, until events are able to be held across Europe. So what we really want, and again, I'm tasking members here, so apologies for this, but if there are things that are immediate to you, send them to us, please. And as things start to crop up, please send them across, because we can make the case to DCMS. And I think there will be a period of adjustment, and we'd like to contribute to that adjustment to the benefit of the sector.
And we're expecting more information, more updates to come to us as the weeks progress and we understand the issues in more detail. As Ryan mentions, please do email policy@sportandrecreation.org.uk if you have any specific questions or concerns for the team. Moving on to some exciting news, our first virtual event of the year in regards to our policy team, and our first all-party parliamentary group for sport is coming up in early February. What can we expect from that?
Yeah, so looks like it's going to be a really exciting event. We're lucky enough that the Minister, Nigel Huddleston, is going to be joining us, along with Sport England's Chief Executive, Tim Hollingsworth. And we're going to have a bit of a look ahead to what the sector needs as we move out of this period of lockdown and hopefully get back to a more settled pattern of activity. The event takes place on the 3rd of February. That's a Wednesday at 3:00. The invites went out this week, and so far among our members and sector partners, we've had over 70 sign-ups in the last couple of days since that's gone out. If there's anybody who's watching this who isn't on the list and wants to be, then email me or email the policy email address that you just mentioned, Alex. But it should be a really good chance to get some questions in directly to the Minister. His team will be there. We do that behind the scenes anyway, but the APPG is really a good chance to speak directly to the Minister. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
And always a fantastic opportunity just to hear the latest updates from the Minister as well. So as we're working virtually, the virtual room can be overflowing. It's not quite the restrictions we have when we make our way to Westminster. So please do join us for that event in early February as well. And finally, to conclude, Ryan, any other business, any other updates our members should be aware of?
Yeah, just the one thing really on the parliamentary front. So members may or may not know, one of the functions that Parliament undertakes, aside from debates in the Chamber and select committees, they can also debate in Westminster Hall, and they're unsurprisingly called Westminster Hall debates. And during the first lockdown, these were suspended because Parliament didn't want to take them online. I think because the main chamber's online, and then it becomes quite a difficult process. So they were suspended, and last week Parliament voted to suspend them again for the period of lockdown, however long that will be. So from our point of view, it's one less avenue to lobby, and to have our issues aired. And usually Westminster Hall debates they're applied for by members of Parliament, but they can come off the back of petitions. So the Open Air Gyms petition led to a wider activity and sport debate back in, I think, November it was. Those opportunities aren't going to be there for the first couple of months. So if there are any members who have signed up to petitions and are expecting to hear something, or have their own petitions, then you may get a response. But the Westminster Hall function is not going to be there for a while. But I'll keep monitoring the situation, talk to some of our contacts and see when we're likely to get that back again, because it is useful for us to be able to air some of the issues that the sector's having in that forum as well.
Certainly, and we will update on the Westminster Roundup when we can start resuming those Westminster Hall debates, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to reflect upon some DCMS questions and looking at that APPG, and obviously we'll be keeping our eye on everything Brexit as well. But do follow us at SportRec Tweets online for the latest updates and government advice, and if you do have any questions for the team, please do use that policy inbox for that. But massive thank you again for Ryan, for the simplicity that you bring to this update to help our members understand what's happening in Westminster. Always good to see you.
Yeah, you too, mate. I don't know if simple. I think that's a good way of describing me, I think.
Well, it needs breaking down, and we're doing our best job at that for our members. And as mentioned, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more updates and the latest from Westminster. But please do take care for now.